Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/INTB and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's easy. Go to audibletrial.com/INTB.
Honestly, they're not that bad.
Welcome to an episode of It's Not That Bad podcast. I'm Fern here with Dom.
Hey.
So if you're listening to this podcast, then you must know that the coronavirus is over.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys didn't know, I'm sorry we're breaking it to you like this.
Yeah.
You should get more on your news, but yeah, our great governor of Arizona told us that the virus doesn't exist after this Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So and yeah, now we could get back to being normal, I guess.
What did George W. Bush, the sign that he had, mission accomplished.
But seriously though, here in Arizona, they want to start lifting all these.
Well, yeah, they already did, like barbershops and salons can you can have people in. Because my mom just got a haircut. I've been meaning to get one for months.
Yeah. You mean you've been meaning to get the coronavirus?
Yeah. Actually, that's what Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Trying to explain my thought process on states opening up is kind of hard because I do want things to stay closed as possible, but I also know that the way that this virus is going, it's hard to really predict.
Yeah.
See, because I'm someone who's like, hey, I try to think logically.
Wow.
And and having these conversations are kind of hard because if you lean one way, then you're a libtard.
Yeah.
But if you lean another way, then you're just a right-wing piece of shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm just kind of like, I don't know, doing research and, following what people are doing.
I fall into that constantly because, like, as someone who is, like, staunchly independent, I don't like either party because they're both ridiculous. But, like, I think we both fall more towards, like, progressive, right? And where we do see the issues, and we can side with certain people sometimes, but we side with people other things.
But see, I
think it's because we see the arguments for both sides.
But I think that when we say progressive, people think, you're all
liberal.
Yeah, you're all left-leaning. It's like, no, our progressive-ness is centralized. Everyone else is skewed.
Yes.
Everyone else is either far left or far right. What are they? Libertarians think that they're more centralized?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, no.
They're definitely more right wing.
And I the reason why libertarians frustrate me is because they see the same issues that we see. They constantly complain about the same thing we do, right? But their idea for how to fix it is like, why would you want to privatize that? Like the post office, like they want to privatize the post office, but then that means that they're gonna be charging more to deliver something. Or, hey, you guys, like the post office right now can deliver to rural areas. They'll probably be like, no, we're not gonna do that. It costs too much money.
Nah.
It's not part of our what do they call it? The bottom line.
Yeah, and I think like that's frustrating.
Yeah,
is because I can't, like, one thing that it's like a mix of conservative and like conspiracy theorists. They're always talking about like, the numbers are fake. I totally agree. I know the numbers are fake, but that's not because there's a secret cabal that's trying to control us. It's literally because it's way easier for hospitals to be like, we're pretty sure that this is a coronavirus or this death is tied to coronavirus, and it's probably also because of profit. And they're like, "Oh, see, now you're just believing in the lamestream media."
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
Like, you guys are literally the same people. We're the ones who are trying to be the outliers,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, you're like, one person's like, "You're ridiculous because you only get your news from Fox. I get mine from CNN." And it's like, how does that make you different? Like, at all? I don't get my news from either of those sources because they're completely biased.
Yeah, I get mine from Al Jazeera. No, but it's like, it's so confusing trying to like explain where you stand, especially right now, where I don't want Arizona to open up, but I am also interested to see like what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't know. And like, people are like packing, and then that's another thing too, is like on Mother's Day they were showing like restaurants that were like packed because people could go out, right? And it's like, they're not taking, like, these places are sometimes not taking the precautions, and they're just like, "Oh well, we need the business," so they're lumping all these people together. And it's like, that's going to lead to more people having it, and that's going to, like, that, what was the whole point of us doing this in the first place then, right? It's just like, I just don't understand like why you would think like, "Oh, this disease that's killing people," like, oh, it's not really real, right? Because it's not affecting me or my family. I think that's really what it is. It's like, well, I don't think it's all people. I believe it's certain people of less pigmentation that
Agreed.
that like to think like, if it doesn't happen to them, that means it never happened.
It's so scary that all this shit is happening, and the first thing that people do are like, "Yeah, no, this isn't real."
And I think it's been the years and years of building on different conspiracies. Like, it's led to this.
Well,
where
that's what
people
all
can't
conspiracy
believe-
is. Like,
Well,
we always
but-
talk about how all of this shit adds up to one thing, and then people
Yeah.
run with it, and then they keep adding to it. Like the whole thing with like, "Oh well, China did this and this." It's like, yeah, of course China's at fault because they did lie about
Yeah,
like the virus. They
tried
did lie.
to
Like, all that shit
lie
is
about
real.
it. Yes,
All of it is real.
but that
But
doesn't.
but that doesn't mean that they're like, "Oh, see, they're the ones who made it, and they physically brought it over here, and blah blah blah." And that's why I say all Chinese people have it. It's like, that's not how it fucking works. If you believe that, then you have to believe that the Chinese government also did exactly what you're saying that the U.S. government did. So then you're saying that the U.S. government is in cahoots with the Chinese government. So what you're saying is, well, we're also a part of the Chinese government. So then, like, why is it that you're still okay with some people who are part of the government? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that does, to me, that doesn't make any fucking sense too. Like, where you believe certain people in the government, certain specific people, but then you won't believe other people.
Yeah. Oh, so you're saying that the governments are doing this together, but obviously Trump's not a part of it?
No, but he's trying to defend us from it, even though his cabinet is getting, like, his people in the White House are getting it. But it's like, but see, he's defending against it.
See what I mean? Like, it's so easy to unravel these things, but for some reason, people are so hard-headed about it. And it's like, the reality is that there's just some fucking mutant virus that's going around, and we're trying to fucking hurry up and figure out what it is, but it's not helping when there's giant groups of people literally keep spreading it. There's people I saw, they're like, "Oh, it's crazy how, like, you can't get the virus at, like, big box stores." And it's like, who the fuck said that?
Yeah, who said that?
Because a small business was too small to stay open, but a Target or a Walmart isn't. That's fucking capitalism's fault.
Yeah, and what I think is disgusting is, like, you claim that you love capitalism, right? And you want these what do they call them, Main Street mom and pop stores to exist, but it's like, but because of something like this, they can't, because bigger companies, they take all the money away from it because they can afford to do this. And yet, even though they can afford to stay open, they still can't pay their employees, right, a living wage, to keep them at home and safe.
Yeah. I don't know. Honestly, there's there's a lot of shit going on, and it's difficult to be level-headed when no one wants to be level-headed.
Yeah.
But all I could say is just like, I don't know, stop trying to follow one path or the other and just see everything as a whole.
Yeah.
Like it's not as black and white as you think it is.
Yeah. I mean, I think people should live by this. If you need to go out for something, depending on what it is, if it's something a necessity, like groceries, right? I think you should go out for that. But if it's not, like, if it's something like, hey, I just want to go out for the day, it's like, maybe you should stay inside.
Yeah. No one gives a shit about your shitty friend.
Yeah.
Who wants to hang out with you, smoke in his car. It's like, then fucking not be boring for like 1 second.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Yeah.
But whatever. Well, too much depression in the world right now. We'll have some fun now and talk about movies and TV, and that can't be depressing.
Right?
This is the fucking news.
Can Christopher Nolan pull the movie theater chains out of their dark night? According to a new poll, 44% of moviegoers said that they would go out to see Nolan's new film, Tenet, which was one of a handful of new releases not to move their premiere date. Two titles that tied for second place with 11% each are Mulan and Marvel's Black Widow. For now, Warner Brothers is counting on the $200 million plus production to open on July 17th, but we'll see if events might cause that date to shift, which I don't think so, because I think Christopher Nolan has been set on it's coming out that day. And I think that's a pretty good time to start opening things. I think, like, July is better than May to start opening up, like, theaters. I think that's when people would finally be like, okay, I think we're good enough to go to the theaters again. And I think a movie like Tenet would probably be a good movie to get people to go in. Like they said, 44%. I mean, that's not half. That's not even the majority. But at least it's a big enough number, I think, where at least they'll turn a profit. I honestly hope, like, it's not like they do it and, like, no one goes. But I mean, because we've seen with, like, Batman or The Dark Knight and Inception and was it Dunkirk, like, he's able to pull in these numbers, and I think people have faith in him to be like, yeah, you can draw a crowd. And especially Tenet, like, I love that he doesn't really give anything away in his trailers, or it's like such a he keeps things under wraps so well that I think people would want to go, like, you know what I mean? Like, they got to go see it because it's like they want to know what it's about.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's hard to say right now because we were talking about earlier, the country is kind of split. Us for Arizona, as of right now, we're open Friday, May 15th, till who knows when, if we're going to close again. California wants to stay closed till later this year. And that's how it goes literally across the board. Some places are open right now. Some places want to stay closed longer. So it's going to be interesting to see where we are July. But I guess also speaking on that, I'm pretty sure you've seen New Mutants got a new date.
Yes.
I was thinking, how come they just don't release that now?
Like, on VOD?
Yeah, because...
Well, that's did you see that, like, they did, like, start, letting people pre-order it on, I think it was Amazon, and then they took it off.
Oh, my God. Because we talked about this with Trolls, that there is probably a market right now where people will watch certain movies because...
because they're dying for something new. Like, now.
We might see it again with Scooby-Doo. If that movie does any money, then there could be a possibility that, some people are just willing to buy a movie because they're bored.
I think so, because parents are going to be like, hey, it's a new movie for kids to watch. It's not Trolls or Sonic. Okay, anything. You know what I mean? Like, God damn it, I can't stand watching these movies.
But I was thinking about that, like, that's a PG-13 movie. We know it's not gonna be rated R anymore. Stupid.
I know.
But that could have a good like cross viewing, like
Yeah,
right? Maybe
I think so.
certain parents are like, I mean, our kids are getting older, and then I think it's still good enough to where people who are older are like, I mean, it's not rated R, I guess, but whatever. And it would have been interesting because they could actually see like, hey, is this thing possible? Because you're right that the timeline could be good enough, right? 2 months down the line, almost 3 months. So who knows? Maybe this thing's better. Maybe it's worse. Like us right now, opening our state, it could maybe nothing happens. Maybe people start going back to work and business start to open again, and cases really don't climb that much differently than when they were when we were closed. Hey, maybe that's a good thing. Or
that shows that it's not like spreading around as like it doesn't spread as fast as we think it does.
Yeah, or it gets a lot worse, and then early July they're like, yeah, we're totally gonna close again until X amount of months. So
Yeah,
it is gonna be interesting because he is very steadfast on staying on that date. And I think it is very optimistic because we are pretty early on right now. But I mean, I guess we really gotta wait till a couple. Honestly, we at least till the end of June to see where we're at, because he's either gonna.
And it was funny too because I was like thinking that August was such a wow, to push it back to August. Like all these movies got pushed to August, right? And for thinking that, it's kind of crazy to push it back that far. But now looking at it in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think we needed it to be pushed that far back. But who knows? I mean, who knows? Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe we stay on track and it works out completely fine. Or maybe it's hey, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah. Some of these news articles talking about some of that stuff, it's really hard to say because right now we're still in the early stages of trying to figure out what's next.
Yeah.
Like I said, some states want to stay closed way longer. Some states want to open now. Some states are opening now. But if the shit gets worse for the states that open and better for the states that's closed, then you know that this whole thing is going to get fucked. And then what happens, with who knows when the next movie theaters are going to open again.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like I said, it's interesting, but it's really hard to say because it's too early to, talk about.
So recently, Ryan Murphy went on Instagram to announce a spin-off to American Horror Story. It's ingeniously titled. I mean, I don't even think you'd be able to guess it.
Canadian comedy story.
That would be hilarious. No, it's titled American Horror Stories.
Oh, yeah. Caught me off guard.
Yeah. See, I knew you would never guess it. Instead of a season-long theme, each episode of the season would be a self-contained, true horror story. Which, honestly, kind of sounds like how the series probably should have been, the whole time. I mean, I love American Horror Story, even for how, horrible they end. They end, he does not... Ryan Murphy, I think, is as much as I love Stephen King, I think he's worse at ending a story than Stephen King. Because at least with Stephen King, it's okay, it's a giant... it's actually a giant spider. Okay, but at least he also gives you yeah, but see, that's not really what it is because it's from this macro he gets weird with it, right? Yeah. And then, but with Ryan Murphy, it's wait, so that's the end? Oh, so they just undid everything that happened this whole season, and yet it's still gonna all happen anyways. Okay, I think it's good. I think it'd be pretty good, especially because if American Horror, because I think they were renewed to season 13, so they got 4 more seasons to go. So I mean, this is a good way to introduce hey, hey guys, we're gonna have American Horror Stories, and Ryan Murphy's gonna be like an executive producer, but he's not gonna be coming up with like every idea. And then it's like, see, that would open room to have good endings to certain things, instead of just like
it could turn out really good.
Yeah.
But it also could turn out like, every episode shitty.
Yeah, that's what I was like, God damn it, it could be like, this all sucks.
Like, literally, the 45-minute buildup is cool, and then you get to the end and you're like, all right.
Yeah.
And that's every episode. Yeah, I don't know. It depends. As the thing they're going to review, it could turn out really good. Or
it's kind of like a Twilight Zone, but like but instead of science fiction and paranormal, it's horror
and paranormal
and paranormal
and science
fiction. but it's horror.
Interesting. Nothing new, I guess. You know, this whole like anthology shit has really been going on pretty strong for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Especially with like a lot of like streaming shit and whatnot, and that catching on. So it would be interesting to see that stuff in a smaller form, right, per episode.
Well,
but you're right. If he stays to just being like the executive producer, then yeah, maybe we'll have something cool. And
yeah, like you can get somebody like Ty West. He's pretty known for doing horror movies. Like he's been around, but he also does some like TV stuff. See, he's one of those ones where it's like he's known, but he's not as big. Like if you said someone like Robert Eggers, I'd be like, no, he's not going to do that. He's working on historically accurate pieces of art.
I mean, we'll just have to see, but cool.
Robert Downey Jr., or RDJ, as his fans call him, has announced that him and his wife will produce an 8-episode live-action adaptation of the DC Comics / Vertigo series Sweet Tooth for Netflix. Will Forte and James Brolin are currently attached to star. Sweet Tooth is written by Jeff Lemire and is about Gus, a boy born with deer-like antlers, who after being raised in total isolation is left to survive in an American landscape devastated a decade earlier by an inexplicable pandemic. So nothing relatable. Yeah. Even more remarkable is that Gus is part of a rare new breed of human-animal hybrid children who have emerged in its wake, all apparently immune to the infection. Enter Jeopard, a violent, hulking drifter who soon takes in Gus and promises to lead him to the preserve, a fabled safe haven for hybrid children. Along the way, they'll have to contend with science militias, deadly scavengers, rival bounty hunters, and hybrid-worshipping cultists as they fight to make it a safety and solve the mysteries of the deadly new frontier. Pushing Sweet Tooth to series is an interesting move, but fitting for Netflix's current strategy of still pursuing comic book properties even after publicly cutting ties with Marvel. It also jibes with Downey's recent foray into television, which includes shepherding the Perry Mason series starring Matthew Rhys at HBO. What does raise questions is why Sweet Tooth landed at Netflix and not HBO Max, which has been aggressively mining DC Comics properties for streaming content and already has a relationship with Downey.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting that for someone like HBO, which we even were wondering, like, does that mean the DC app still gonna exist? Because the way that they were talking about HBO Max is that they were taking all that stuff.
Yeah, because I know Doom Patrol is gonna be on there, and like a lot of the CW is gonna be on there too.
Yeah,
right?
So either way, I guess it's cool. It's in the realm of what people are interested in right now.
Yeah, people are saying no, like, well, Robert Downey Jr. built Marvel, so why is he leaving them for DC? And like, DC's gonna be the new powerhouse, right? It's like,
yeah, I guess that's what they always say.
That's what they always say when they take a Marvel person
for the last 4 years.
Oh, right.
I'm assuming when you said that Will Forte's a part of it, you don't mean he is like the antler kid.
I hope not, right? Because I don't know. Although
I was imagining.
If it's animated, then I think that'd work, right? Maybe.
Maybe. But I will say, Will Forte in a new series makes me happy.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
And I like that they got James Brolin.
Yeah. Honestly, this goes in line with what we've been talking about with TV shows and star power and like where things are right now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound ridiculous, but if Quibi is anything to talk about, then sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But that's a different story too, because Quibi started off wanting to be completely weird and different. And I think that whole thing really fucked up.
I think they should have either released it earlier or they should have waited.
Yeah.
Because they released it at the wrong time. Like a time when people weren't going out and like, you know what
I think they should have done soft releases before the app.
Yeah.
They should have done a 3-part series with Chris Evans under Quibi Studios. They released it on YouTube or something. They could have done small indie movie under Quibi Studios, and then the continuation story is on the app. They could have easily done this shit before, like we talked about with Marvel taking their time and just constantly building up. They could have easily done that, especially with like the idea of things wanting to be quick. They could have done this stuff here, produce this, be a part of this, have this. And then once the app released, they could have probably got more people, because that is star power. Like the amount of people working for Quibi and releasing things on Quibi is pretty amazing. But it's not, so far, it hasn't really succeeded in anything. No. But Netflix is different, to be honest. Like hearing Robert Downey Jr., James Brolin, all a part of Netflix series, it's like that sounds pretty normal now. So it could be good.
Yeah, I honestly, like, I want to see it. Like, it's Netflix, it's Robert Downey Jr., it's not like a main DC, like, comic adaptation. It's like one of their, it's Vertigo, it's something outside of, like, it's still under DC, but it's like Watchmen. Like, Watchmen's, like, I think that was Vertigo, too. It's like, but it's still under DC. But it's like, yeah, but like it was written by someone who doesn't work for DC, so it's pretty much better.
I think I'm more interested in Neil Gaiman's gonna do the Sandman.
They are going to do it?
Yeah, I forgot where though. I can't remember where they said, but they're going.
Because they've been talking about that for years, that they want to adapt that.
Yeah, because I saw it and my friend like loves Sandman, and she was like, "Are you fucking shitting me?" But yeah, all I can really say is like we just gotta wait for it to come out.
Oh yeah,
but pretty cool. Like I said, we could just had Will Forte in it, do everybody.
Oh yeah,
and it'd probably be the best show ever.
Pretty funny.
But either way, pretty stoked on it, I guess.
What do you do?
When someone says something's impossible, I prove it's possible.
Not everything in life makes sense. One day, many years from now, you'll wonder if this really happened. Or if it was a dream.
Everyone is connected to the loop in one way or another.
See, there's nothing to be afraid of.
Tales from the Loop is an American science fiction drama television series based on the eponymous art book by Swedish artist Simon Stålenhag. Townspeople live above the loop, a machine built to unlock and explore the mysteries of the universe. From a girl's mother disappearing, 2 teenage boys switching bodies, and a teenage girl trying to hold on to a moment, to a man trying to keep his family safe and together, a lonely man traveling to a parallel universe, and something hidden on an island. These tales weave together a tapestry of love and hate, friends and enemies, time and space.
Tales from the Loop. A series that says, you like science fiction? Mm-hmm. And then you say, yeah. And then it's like, okay, cool. Well, here's some new crippling depression. Enjoy. And then you're like, what?
It's so, like, you told me a couple of days ago, like, hey, watch Tales from the Loop. And I was like, okay, I'm going to watch it. And then we were, like, deciding on what to do. And I started watching this, and I got halfway through it because I sat there in one sitting getting halfway through, and I was like, this is so good. Like, it's that perfect mix of, like, science fiction and, like, it's not, it's like, it's pushing into, like, the high science fiction, like, devs, but, like, not too far. It doesn't go too far. But, like, yeah, it's like these, it's like these stories are so, like, amazing. Like, there's only 8 episodes, but each one is just so, like, great. Even ones that, like, you think are like, well, this sounds kind of boring. It's like with the girl where she stops the time, right? At first I was like, oh, this might be kind of, like, lame, but then it gets into it and you're like, holy shit, this is like when she calls him a cripple and stuff, and I was like, god damn, like, this is so sad. But, like, because I'm such a, like, I love melancholy and depressing dark things, like, this to me is like, I'm gonna sit here and eat all this. But, like, it's so fucking good.
Watching this thing, it was like, it's the most lived in world I've ever seen.
That too, oh my god, I love that about it.
Like, as far-fetched and wild as it is, it feels real. Like, yes. It feels like when you're watching Stranger Things and they're showing you, like, hey, we're in the 80s. Oh, look at blah, blah, blah. It's like that, but then also with the science fiction part of it.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh yeah, there's just, like, giant robots and things here. And...
But one thing that I love is that it's not like normal science fiction would have, like, been like, hey, it's set in, like, the 70s ish, right? It's like, I'd say, like, the late 70s maybe.
It has to be the early 80s because there's a scene where the brother is listening to music and the little brother comes in and he's listening to the Misfits.
Okay, so then, yeah, so it has to be, like, the early 80s, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, just I love that, like, things are there, but, like, it's not like that science fiction where it's, like, there's still these, like technology is still, like, crazy and wonderful, but it's still, like, but it's there. Like, nobody marvels at, like, things, but they like, oh, like, this is a gadget. Oh, that's awesome. But it's not like, there's a robot here. Oh, whoa. Like, what are these things that are here? Oh, these power things. It's the way I looked at it. I was driving around and I was like, it's like if someone from, like, the turn of the century of, like, the 1900s saw, like, our power lines, they'd be like, whoa, what are those? It's like, what do you mean? They're just power lines.
Which is crazy because that's exactly what he did. He said he basically, which is funny because I didn't know he was actually from Sweden.
He's Swedish.
He basically, like, went around and realized, like, there's all this amazing technology around that sometimes it's, like, forgotten. Like he was saying, like, there's giant things from, like, the 70s and 80s and 60s that still exist that they're just like left in decay, and like we're done with it, but they still loom over everybody.
Yeah.
And they're just there. And he was saying it's like when you see these things from far away, how like, yeah, you're right, how we see them as just other objects, but in reality it's like it's a pretty like big wonder if it was someone else. So one thing that really struck me was like the big old towers they have in the fields, and like even some of them in the water. He was saying like you see that shit all the time in blah 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 and this and this and this, but he's like, but it doesn't catch your eye because it's just that. Yeah. It's just whatever. And I personally see that all the time whenever I look down the street, because I could see that. Is the Bank of America building?
Yes.
All the way on like Southern?
Well, it's not Bank of America, but it used to be.
It used to be, whatever. But like, yeah, there's that feeling of like it's big and it's there and you can see it so far away, but it's just some building, whatever, you know, whatever.
I always think about it because I'm always like, it's so weird that they built such a big building right here and nothing else.
Yeah. And that's kind of what you feel in this universe. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Well, first of all, I was kind of happy with like the actual settings of it because not only was it true to what he drew, but certain parts of it like reminded me of Dragon Ball Z, how they have very like circular things. So like, yeah. So like there's the one with where they switch the bodies. That looks like a capsule that like the Ginyu Force uses.
Yeah.
And all I could think about is like, oh, it'd be so cool if like this universe is like the universe that like after like all the Saiyans came and all this stuff, but then they end up leaving. Like, but anyways, that's not what it is. It's way more. It's way more realistic and fucked up than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that his whole thing was just like, what if in the 60s, 50s, when we were doing these like crazy experiments, what if they actually worked?
Yeah.
And whatever. And then everything was kind of left by the wayside. Specifically, one I think that really does well with it is the robot. Is that the robot on the island totally looks like an old school robot. But then you end up finding out at the end of the series, the teacher is a robot too, but she's supposed to be like, oh, this is what people are comfortable with. And then there's also like, I guess like the real like theme of the whole story is life just happens.
Yeah.
And I think that it works really well because the first episode and the last episode tie in pretty well.
Yeah. Because
when you get to the first episode, it starts off like, you know, just whatever, but then it gets weirder and weirder. And then you're hit right away with, oh, this is time travel. And you're like, what the fuck? Because I actually thought, I wasn't sure exactly how the series was going to be. So I thought each episode was going to be its own like anthology, which it kind of was.
See, that's what I like too, is that it's both episodic and serial.
Yeah.
Like each episode is self-contained, but it also like continues a bigger story.
And that works really well because at the end of the episode, she basically tells you what the whole series is going to be. She's like, yeah, it doesn't matter how like hard we work or how much we know or whatever. Like sometimes things just happen.
Yeah.
She's been trying to figure out what happened to her mom for literally decades. And then she confronts her younger self and she's like, oh yeah, I guess nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
And there's like, this is what I think the story does really well, is that they have all this super crazy sci-fi shit there, right? Like you said, but it's all secondary. What it's about like human emotion and everything, right? Like that, the fact that at the end of that first episode, you're basically told like, hey, it doesn't matter that we work here, that I done this or this happens or whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's like, I'm sorry to break it to you, but that's just what happens. She never comes back. Like, this is this, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, every other episode, too, it deals with, like, real emotional shit. Like, the girl with the freezing the time or whatever. It's like, she's basically someone who can't stop self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
And it's like, how fucking depressing is it that you think, like, something has to change, right? But no, it doesn't. It just ends with her kind of realizing that there's this problem with her and she can't fucking change it.
Yeah.
And even when she has someone as great as that guy, something that she thought would be a positive memory, but she's like, every time we pass this street, you're always going to remember this moment, right? But really, like, that becomes such a sour thing.
Yeah.
Because now she remembers, like, hey, remember, like, at my peak happiness, I couldn't stay happy. Like, how fucked up is that? The only real positive one I could see, maybe, is when the guy gets into the alternate universe.
That's what I was gonna say, the parallel universe thing.
Because it kind of comes full circle where in the beginning he blows off the guy, like, whatever. But then in the alternate universe, he's like, oh, maybe this guy was
because he
meant for me.
finally met the man he was like obsessing over.
Yeah,
and
literally dream man.
Yeah,
Whatever.
and he finally understood what he like, that it's like, maybe these people that you obsess over, like, are not as good of people as you think they are. That's probably why you shouldn't obsess over people. And yeah, maybe the person that you keep seeing, like, maybe that's a sign that, like, maybe you have more in common with them than you do this person who sits there and plays the piano.
Yeah.
Just because he's
Or
so
it
sexy
means-
when he plays that.
Yeah,
fucking
or it
piano.
means, like, all hot people are disgusting and all ugly people are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. No, but but the interesting interesting thing about that episode I didn't think about till after is that during the episode they constantly say, like, they're kind of one and the same, right? There's just a little bit different.
Yeah.
And then he comes to the conclusion that, yeah, this guy is kind of a piece of shit. And he's like, well, why are you staying with him? Because he is thinking, like, why would I stay with him? And he can't figure it out. And it's like, just imagine that, right? Imagine you, like, you know, all the shit I was telling you, like, would you do this? Would you do this?
I know.
Imagine if you actually got stuck with the parallel universe version of you doing a thing that you said you never do. And you're like, but you're me. We think the same. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Like, if you know this, why don't you leave? And
Yeah.
he's like,
like that has to be so crazy. That one, and then
that one's good. I like that one.
the dad who loses the arm.
Yeah.
Like, the only thing that I could really say is, like, it kind of makes sense because he's, like, terrified of this thing, right? He loses his arm. But when he's a kid and he's getting the arm, like, he's happy.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on in life, like, he even tells him, like, hey, we can upgrade you to something better. And he's like, oh, I like this arm.
Yeah.
And then he ends up giving it away anyways to the robot.
And the way I look at it too is, like, because the dad, like, when he's rescued, and the dad asks him, like what did you see? And, like, well, it was like I created, but I think the way he acts is like, it's like his son, like his brother. You know what I mean? Like, that's also his kid, and, like, it's something that he had to hide because it's just that no one else would understand it. And then he gets there, and then as an adult, like, having gone through all this, you finally realize, like, the monster that haunted you wasn't a monster, and it was, like, it just wanted to live there. It just wanted to live, and people would never understand that. They'd look at it and be like, well, it screams like a monster, so we need to kill it.
Yeah. There's so much of that into that, because you could even tie that in to what happened with his own kid.
Yeah.
Like, that's what, like, that last episode was so fucked up because
oh my god,
not only do everyone comes to terms that his brother actually switched bodies with that robot. then the robot died, and then he came out and like everyone knew, and everyone just lived their life, and it's like, just imagine living like that.
And what's fucked up is that the little kid, like he's so like optimistic about it. He's like, no, mom can fix this. Like, they have the loop. They can do anything. They can fix this. And it turns out, no, you can't fix everything.
Yeah.
And it's fucked up. But it's so sad when they get in the bar and like remember when they're sitting there,
yeah,
and the whole family walks in and he's with them, and it's like, because he just wanted to be part of his family again. It's like, and I was thinking about it at the end. I was like, that's technically her granddaughter.
Yeah.
Because that's his daughter.
Yeah.
But it's not. It is, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like, that's
what I'm saying. Like,
it's so messed up.
Like because obviously they still have somewhat of a relationship.
They have to, because she smiles at him.
Yeah, because when he comes at the end, when he's playing outside and he comes with his daughters and stuff, obviously, like, she had to call him, let him know.
Yeah.
So, but there's so much there that makes you think, like, so what happened? Like, what like, I don't know. The thing that, like you said, like, the thing that it does really well is that it grounds all these super real emotions, but it plays with like this scientific stuff. It plays with like, oh, like, you know, all these theories that we think, you know, could happen. Like, yeah, so they're real and this happens and we can create this and this. And yeah, it's like we talked about last week with sci-fi and it maturing and being something, whatever. This would be the definition of it. Mm-hmm. This is like the most realistic, super emotional show I've ever seen. That just also happens to deal with like time travel, alternate dimensions, like things of the strange. It's like everything about it is like wonderful and kind of depressing.
Yeah. Well, the way I see it is like, even now, like, this is supposed to be a commentary on how we are. No matter how far we advance in any type of technology, if we're able to create sentient life, we're able to time travel, we're able to travel to parallel dimensions, we're able to do this, to switch bodies, to do this, do that, right? You still can't stop, like the grandpa, he dies. There's no way to stop that. Like, to like reverse things, it's like, it's hard to do. Like,
or like her mom.
Yeah.
Well, she probably will never come back. Nope. I mean, who knows where she's at? And
we get to see in the future, like, well, we're never told that she never comes back. I think it's safe to assume she probably doesn't.
Yeah. She could have went way back in the future.
Yeah. Maybe. To pass her when her daughter dies.
Yeah. There's so much here that I didn't think we'd actually get from this thing. Because one thing that I don't know if we brought up, but these were just like picture books. Mm-hmm. There's just some guy went out there.
Yeah.
He drew his landscape and was like, what if this was like sci-fi?
Yeah.
What if this was this? And then slowly this started to turn into what we have now. Because they have like a, what do you call it? Like a RPG?
Yes.
Role playing thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know anything about that. I don't know if any of the story coexists with that, but
they have like miniatures that look like the one robot with the arm, like the strapper.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's one thing that I really liked about the show is that they literally just took the book and were like, that's how it's gonna look.
Yeah. I love that they didn't change it.
Yeah.
It
wasn't like,
exactly.
So how can we make this work towards us? It's like that. Okay. Go to page 7. Uh-huh. That's how it's gonna look. Like, it was that simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, honestly, I think if we were a better podcast, we could easily go through every episode better. But I can't tell you how much, like, after I watched this, I was like, that's probably one of the best things I've ever seen, ever.
I mean, would you want us to sit here and go through like
Fuck yeah. Well, because here's the thing too, is I don't know if this is ever going to continue, but there's also what is it? It's not. What do they call it? Something from the loop? It basically the second book he did was like the first book, but there's like a virus that affects the technology or something like that. It looks really fucked up. It kind of looks like all it's like all disease and stuff like that.
Shit, really?
Yeah. Also in the same thing, which I kind of hope that they continue with, is you did one like the electric something or whatever, but it's basically like what he considered America. Like it's like if America had all this stuff and then like let it take over or something, and then we let it fall into decay. So it's kind of like the thing. I don't know how to explain it. Pretty much it was a big fuck you to America.
Oh, okay.
Like big corporate America.
Really?
And honestly, like that would be so cool to see. And a companion story or continuation, I don't know. Like what they did with this, I want them to keep doing, because they have a loop in the universe. The original universe, the loop was in Switzerland, but they also have one in America, like up, I think it was like by the lake or something like that, kind of like Arizona, Nevada area. And obviously in the show, the loop is like the Midwest, I guess, right? That's kind of what it seemed like.
Yeah.
I can't remember where they exactly said it was, but I'm assuming it looked like it was something in the Midwest. But on it, like it would be so cool to see what they do if they can like do another season, but like in a different part of America or maybe a different part of the world. I don't know. When I saw this, I was like, this looks so beautiful. This is so emotional. This is so real. But yeah, I know it's not. But it was like something I've never seen before.
Yeah. But I think it's like that, like, yeah, like what we were saying last week, it's like that perfect, so, like Devs is like more like high sci-fi, right? Where it's like it's going into this, and we talked about other like other sci-fi things doing this or doing that, like talking about it. But I think this works on like emotion and human, like a human level with technology. Yeah. Those other ones were like what technology can do. This one's like technology does this, but this is how it affects us.
Man. Well, honestly, it's more like technology took a back seat.
Yeah.
Because with, like I said, with the one girl and the where she was able to stop time, she was using technology, but it was all like, it was honestly like her thinking that she could escape the real world to be happy with this guy. But then it comes full circle and she's like, oh, I don't know if I could ever be happy because it's me. I'm the problem.
Yeah. Or even like the dad, he tries to solve it with the robot, like, but it's like you can't solve all your problems with like, oh, a big machine that just is there like as a symbol of like protection. It's like you actually got to do these things.
Yeah.
Like with the fact that he took the money from like his boss, right? And then he bought the robot, but it's like, why didn't you just you should have fixed the electricity when you had the chance. And you should have done that. But see, like it doesn't for this. I think what it is, it doesn't forget the human element.
Yeah.
And see, like that's what a person would do. Like,
well, I think it really is. This is like the human experience.
Yeah.
But also with sci-fi.
Yeah. But yeah, it's done in the most like.
And it's not. The thing is, it's beautiful. Not ridiculous.
No.
It's like it doesn't matter how much robots you see or like floating tractors or giant I don't know, electric thingies or this weird, what was it called again? The ball?
Solar? No, the eclipse?
The eclipse? Yeah, the eclipse. Like, yeah, some of that shit is like very out there. And obviously, like, there's more that you could get into, like, why this is the way it is, but that's all secondary.
Yeah.
It literally is about, like, the human experience. It's as fucked up as it is. It's just like, hey, even if all of this stuff did exist, like, these problems would exist. These emotions would exist. You know, the way that people act, the way that we are how we are with one another, like, all that shit is still gonna exist. Doesn't matter if we have time travel. Doesn't matter if we can switch bodies and tell the future or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't matter with all of that because we're still gonna be the same way we are now. You know, we're still gonna be jealous and upset and angry and confused.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean, happy and all this stuff. And that's what this show did. And it's honestly, like, unbelievably beautiful, but also, like, fucked up.
Yeah.
Because that's life. Life is a little bit of everything. As happy as we can be right now, the greater world is kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
But does that mean we have to live in depression because everyone's kind of suffering right now? Or can we find happiness in watching a TV show or playing the game with my nephew? Or, you know what I mean? Like, this show is like a statement of like humanity being as human as possible, but with the wonder and awe of, like, science fiction being as sci-fi as it could be.
Yeah.
That makes any sense.
It's acted well. It's directed well. It's shot really good. Like, even just like the CGI, like, it just looks amazing. It's if you haven't seen it yet, stop listening to this. Go watch it. Come back and listen to this. I think we've said that about a lot of things, but I think this is one of the ones where it's like, I think we both would agree. It's like, no, go watch this now.
I'm pretty upset that more people haven't talked about this.
Yeah, me too.
This was like, the only reason why I remember watching it was I was like, there's something on Amazon Prime that I wanted to watch. And I was like, oh, Hunters. I forgot I didn't finish Hunters. But then as I was about to start it, I was like, oh, Tales from the Loop, it's on. I totally forgot. And then I was like, maybe I'll start it later.
Well, when you told me, I kind of had that, like, maybe I'll watch it at some time. But then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna watch it. I started watching it. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so glad I watched this.
Yeah, I couldn't give this show more praise than anything. I know some people probably have a problem with, like, yeah, but it didn't really, like, answer a lot of things.
Who
but
cares?
but I'm saying, like, that's, I think, what it's going for.
Yeah.
Like, it basically telling you, doesn't matter what you do in life, sometimes things just happen, and no matter what, no matter how prepared you are, no matter if you think that you got everything set in order, sometimes things just happen and you don't know why.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes things are going to happen and you can't figure out, like, well, what went wrong? Because sometimes just the most random thing is going to happen and you can't fix it.
To err is human. That's what being alive is. Like, sometimes there's things that we're not going to be able to explain. We're never going to be able to explain it, no matter if you think we are, because, oh, look how far we've come along. It's like, that's not good enough. We're never, like, that's what the show shows, is like, sometimes you can't explain things.
Yeah. Fantastic show. The hardest.
Yeah.
If this doesn't get some continuation one way or
I'm gonna
another,
be fucking mad.
yeah, I'm gonna be mad because everyone was talking about that one show where, like, they die and then go into, like, a virtual heaven or something. Can't remember. It's new. It's like a comedy. Upload. Everyone's been talking about that, but, like, this just got released, I think, like a month ago or something.
Recently, right?
Yeah. And I haven't heard anyone talk about it. And that pisses me the fuck off because this is honestly like some of the best TV / video anything that I've ever seen. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not a loser and you're super cool, go watch it.
Honestly, if you love sci-fi, go watch it.
Or if you love like hard-hitting drama, go watch it.
If you want to feel something, go watch it.
Yeah. Honestly, just go watch it.
Yeah. Okay, so this week we're going to talk about some comebacks that people mounted when they were like, hey, I'm a big star. Wait, now I'm not a big star? Well, I got to come back. Jason Bateman. So he started off as a child star on like Silver Spoons and the Hogan Family, but during the 90s he was pretty forgettable until he started on Arrested Development, and that's when I think that's when everyone was like, hey, this guy's like hilarious. and honestly, since then, he's been on a roll. Look at, he's been in like how many different comedy, like he was in Game Night, he was just in the Outsider, he's been in Ozark, which I heard is like amazing. But I mean, no one will ever forget that he was in Teen Wolf 2. Rob Lowe. So he started off as Soda Pop Curtis in The Outsiders, and he was part of the Brat Pack. But he was like, he started alongside like Tom Cruise, Patrick Swayze, Matt Dillon, Emilio Estevez, and like all the stuff. And then in the late 80s, there was like a sex scandal with a videotape, but with a younger actress, but he kind of fell off for a while. It wasn't until like, I mean, it says on here like The West Wing brought him back, but I would say it wasn't until Parks and Rec really that he came back and people were like, oh yeah, Rob Lowe? Oh yeah, he's actually pretty funny. Did you guys know that? Because, I mean, like, I remember him being on The West Wing, but he wasn't really in anything at the time, was he? Besides, I mean, Tommy Boy was what, like 3 years earlier than that?
I think so. But yeah, you're right though, because I think he did that thing where he came back and was trying to work, like he was like a working actor.
Yeah.
But Parks and Rec was the thing that put him into the mainstream as like this lovable character.
Yeah.
And really since then he kind of played off of that and became more popular, and then started doing even more things because of that role. Not saying that role made him, obviously not.
No.
But I think that was like the second wind of oh, he can be a big star.
Yeah. Mickey Rourke. So Mickey Rourke, he started in 9.5 Weeks, and like in the 80s, he had like a rising star. He was in Rumblefish, The Pope of Greenwich Village, Barfly, but then in the early 90s he quit acting and he started boxing and destroyed his whole, like, I was reading this article about him, and like it's ridiculous. Like his face like got so like ruined, and then he had so many botched surgeries because he initially got like surgery to fix up like the cuts and bruise and all the like breaks and all the damage that was done to his face. He got like initial surgery, but I guess what happened then was the person who did it like completely like messed up, so he had to go back for more surgery. But I guess the person who did that to fix it like botched it even more. Like that, he even said himself, he's like, I went to the wrong people to like get this stuff fixed. And then that's why like years later, like finally he came back with Sin City, and he was in there, and then he was in The Wrestler, which is an amazing movie. And then from there, because he was nominated for an Academy Award for that one. So during the mid-70s, there were a few stars who were bigger than John Travolta. Yeah, we're going to talk about John Tra. I mean, he was in like Carrie, Grease, Saturday Night Fever, Urban Cowboy. That was all like late 70s, early 80s. But during that time, he kind of faded away. And it wasn't until he was in Pulp Fiction in the mid-90s that's when he came back. And I mean, since then he was in he was in Face Off, he was in Battlefield Earth, he was in Michael, remember? He plays the angel. Yeah. So he was in a bunch of things for a while, and then he kind of faded away for a little bit now, right?
I think his star kind of, well, I wouldn't say faded out, but I think it like leveled out in like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Because after that, he just became John Travolta,
Yeah.
the star. So, like, it's not unheard of for him to make a movie, but I think he does more being like that friendly actor guy.
Yeah. Robert Downey Jr. He started off with a bang. Like, he was in Chaplin, Weird Science, Less Than Zero. They include Natural Born Killers, but that was like a little while after. And I would say that was already into when he was like, people were like, oh, Robert, he's a little bit toxic because he does drugs and he drinks and he loves whores. But yeah, that like got him like kicked out for the longest time, like from the early 90s to the late 2000s. It literally wasn't until like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Zodiac, but even those were like, people weren't like going to see it because of Robert Downey Jr. He still had that stigma of, because I think he did try to come back at one point earlier, right? But he blew it by doing more drugs and stuff, and people were just like, nah. But then I think when they were going to make Iron Man, and everyone was like, hey, you know who would be the perfect Iron Man? Yeah, he's really horrible because he does so many drugs. Like, he's so drugged out right now. But you know who looks like Iron Man? Robert Downey Jr. And so then Marvel took a chance, and they hit it big, because already just at that point, like just a little bit before that, right, gotten completely clean and was like, I'm done with all of that.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that's why they took a chance, right? Because he was like, I'm not, you don't have to worry about me because I don't do that anymore. And it's crazy too, because it's like, for the longest time, nobody wanted to work with them.
Yeah.
And now, afterwards, look at, he's making a Netflix show. He has his own production company.
Yeah, I remember when he was in Iron Man, that changed everything.
Yeah.
Like because honestly, a lot of people don't even know much of what he done, except for like maybe like 2 or 3 movies in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And then Iron Man.
I bet kids who like love Robert Downey Jr. don't even know he was on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Like, he was on part of the cast. He was part of the cast that actually got it canceled.
Like, it's crazy to see where he is right now. It's not that people forget, but I think it's very much played down, like how fucking crazy his like meltdowns were.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for someone who I would say was still fairly young when he had like a lot of his problems, like I remember seeing his mugshots a lot.
Yeah.
Like, he's one of those guys that you would see on the news
Mm-hmm.
of like, oh, famed 80s actor Robert Downey Jr., blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know if people really understand how crazy he got for a while, but the fact that he became like the head almost of this Marvel Cinematic Universe,
To the point where his
became
death,
a like ultra millionaire.
yeah, and like his death is so like regarded as like, oh my god, I'm sitting here crying.
Honestly, I think a lot of like older people see him as like the ultimate comeback.
Yeah.
Because he really was someone who they thought like, you know, he would kind of fade away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, someone who could work every once in a while, but essentially wouldn't be the megastar that like a Tom Cruise would have been, you know?
Yeah, and he might show up here and there, like he did with like Zodiac, where he wasn't the main character. He just kind of was there.
He could have easily been like a Rob Lowe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where,
but
you know, he still works, but isn't nearly as big as like he is right now.
no.
And now with this list. Hopefully, next time we do this list, we can add Brendan Fraser back because he's starting to act again.
Yes, because I always liked Brendan Fraser. I thought he was like
There's so many movies of his that.
What's him?
Blast from the Past.
A Blast from the Past. No, what's
Mummy. Come on, Dom.
No.
The Mummy.
No, where
Airheads.
Airheads.
Honestly, you know, it'd be interesting to see like the next batch of people that come back. You know what I mean? Like Haley Joel Osment, how he like literally disappeared after he stopped becoming like the cute little kid.
And then he grew into that weird adult looking kid.
Yeah, he grew up, but came back and was like, "Oh, he still got it though."
But that's the thing. It's like, he looks like the little kid, but just as an adult. It's weird. But the weird thing is, like, he's still an amazing actor.
Yeah. So we see it here and there, but I mean, like, it's a good comeback story is always like makes you happy, you know.
Yeah.
Makes you feel like, hey, even if you failed once, like, doesn't mean that has to be your whole career.
Yeah. Or even if you're coked out Robert Downey Jr. now, doesn't mean that you can't be Iron Man's Robert Downey Jr. later.
But with that, we'll say thank you for listening.
Yes. Thank you all.
We appreciate it. And if you want to show some gratitude, you can go ahead and follow us on any of your streaming services. You can also follow our YouTube. There'll be a link in the show description. So all of our new episodes are going up there. Check it out, if you will. You can follow us on our social media. That's INTB _podcast. That's for Instagram and Twitter. Or you can email us directly at intbpodcast@gmail.com and let us know. Is there a certain celebrity that you feel has like a second win or a new start that you feel, you know, people don't talk about a lot, or maybe you hope someone's gonna do it, like your favorite actor from the 90s come back?
Yeah. Or have you seen Tales from the Loop? Did you?
Probably not.
They probably haven't watched it. But if you have watched it, like, what did you think about it? Or did you feel like, oh my God, like it's so depressing and so emotional? Or were you like a robot and you're like, I don't know what feelings are. Does not compute.
Yeah, just let us know.
Yeah.
But until then, guys, as always, remember,
it's not that bad.
It's not that